good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for watching THV 11 News at noon. I'm Amanda Jaeger in for Michael Aaron, and I'm here alongside meteorologist Nathan Scott. I don't know if it's you, if it's Scott, if it's Tom Brandon Krause. I don't know who is up to all of this amazingness with the weather, but I'm loving this like spring-like December.
Welcome to December in Central Florida, because that's what it feels like out there. And that's what it's going to feel like out there over the next several days. We are in a warming trend here in the natural state. This morning, though, it was jacket weather. We start off the day into the 30s in those colder spots. Clinton, Searcy, Arkadelphia woke up with a temperature of 44 degrees at Little Rock. And some beautiful sunrises have been coming in to our station because of all the clouds that we had out there this morning. There's still a band of clouds in parts of the area, but the trend will be for those skies to clear out if you're watching us in Arkadelphia, Pine Bluff, and Stuttgart, and that's going to allow the temperatures to warm up. Also on the breezy side, there's winds kicking in from the south-southwest about 10 to 15 miles per hour. So highs today topping out into the upper 60s to lower 70s. We're going to be even warmer going into Thursday and also Friday. The weekend, though, changes do arrive, and I'll explain what those changes are coming up.
The Supreme Court heard arguments this morning about a Mississippi law that bans nearly all abortions after 15 weeks. Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization is a case which challenges that law. Furthermore, it could be the case that overturns Roe v. Wade. Skylar Henry is outside the Supreme Court with more details.
Supreme Court justices listened as the state of Mississippi made the case that its law, which bans nearly all abortions after 15 weeks, should be upheld.
Nowhere else does this court recognize a right to end a human life.
The state is arguing the justices should ignore the legal concept of stare decisis, the idea that the courts follow their prior precedent and essentially overturn the cases which made abortion legal in all states.
Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey haunt our country. They have no basis in the Constitution. For 50 years, they've kept this court at the center of a political battle that it can never resolve.
But some justices pushed back on that.
The rationale behind those cases has something to do with the autonomy and the freedom and the dignity of women to pursue their lives as they wish, to protect their bodily integrity.
Passions are running high as protesters on both sides of this issue are out in full force today.
This is real. Women are in charge of their own bodies. The state is not in charge. We're in charge.
This is a civil rights, human rights struggle that will never go away because there's a God in heaven who created humanity.
How the justices' rule could further divide the country along conservative and liberal lines. 21 conservative states have already passed laws banning all or almost all abortions if Roe v. Wade is overturned, while 16 states are working on legislation to protect access to abortion. Skylar Henry, CBS News, the Supreme Court.
And that court decision is not expected until early next summer. Now, a stricter abortion law is actually on hold here in Arkansas. Early this year, Governor Hutchinson signed a measure into law banning all abortions except if it's done to save the life of a mother. It's been temporarily blocked by a federal judge. There's no word on how long the temporary injunction will last, but it could be decided after the Supreme Court's ruling on that Mississippi law. As more countries report cases of the Omicron variant, scientists here in the U.S. are working to understand the new strain and how contagious it may be. CBS's David Begnaud got an inside look and has more.
Health officials around the world are concerned about the new variant Omicron because it has a never-before-seen number of spike proteins, which the virus uses to enter cells in the human body. There are labs around the U.S. that are testing to see where Omicron is going to pop up first.
We're sequencing the COVID genome of thousands of positive COVID samples.
We went to the Pandemic Response Lab just outside New York City to meet John Laurent. He is head of research and development here. The U.S. is sequencing 80,000 positive PCR tests every week to look for variants. That way, they can determine how fast the variants are spreading and how infectious they are. About 2,000 of those sequences occur right here.
Our turnaround time here, once we get a sample in, is about 3 days.
That may seem like a long time, but these scientists insist it is as fast as they can go. The samples are pooled together, sequenced, and analyzed to search for Omicron and other variants. Right now, the Delta variant makes up more than 99% of cases worldwide.
How long did it take for Delta to become the majority of all COVID positive patients in New York City?
Thinking back on that, I think it was probably 6 to 8 weeks from the time we first sort of saw it and then really saw it take off. And it took off very quickly.
That's pretty fast.
Yes, it was very fast.
So is it your guess that once you detect Omicron, within, let's say, a month and a half to 2 months, it could be the majority of everything?
It could definitely be.
Scientists say over the next week or two, they're going to learn a lot more about how this new variant will impact the pandemic. David Begnos, CBS News, New York.
State and health officials say they are actively looking for the Omicron variant here in Arkansas, but their focus continues to be making sure we don't see another surge in cases. The governor says we could easily find ourselves back to where we were in the summer and even last winter if we're not careful. So let's look at our numbers. Here's yesterday's numbers, and you can see why he is concerned. More than 1,000 cases of COVID-19 were reported on Tuesday. While some of those could be from late reporting, it's still the biggest one-day jump we've seen since September. Health Secretary Dr. Jose Romero says close to 30% of those new cases are in kids between the ages of 5 and 18. It's a group that is eligible to get the vaccine.
So it's important that parents realize that this virus does affect children. It can have long-term consequences, and that vaccines are available, and we're encouraging them to get their children vaccinated.
Dr. Romero also urged another high-risk group, pregnant women, to get vaccinated, encouraging them to ignore misinformation they may see online. As for our other numbers, active cases and hospitalizations are up. Right now, 5,699 people are dealing with COVID-19. 409 of them are fighting it from a hospital bed. That is 19 more than Monday's number. And while we've been in worse spots before, officials pointed out that hospitalizations have jumped 18% just in the last week. 12:07, and a fourth student has now died following that deadly shooting at a high school in Michigan. Officers were dispatched to Oxford High School just north of Detroit yesterday afternoon. Investigators say a 15-year-old sophomore armed with a semi-automatic gun fired at least 12 rounds, killing 4 students, hurting several others. Cassidy O'Neill, a junior at the school, barricaded herself in a classroom with her boyfriend and other students.
This is something you see in like movies. Like, this doesn't happen at Oxford, this doesn't happen at my school.
The sheriff's office says the suspect's father purchased that gun that was used just 4 days ago. Local law enforcement and the FBI are going through social media as well as surveillance video for clues on what happened. Meanwhile, the trial of Josh Duggar picking back up in Northwest Arkansas today. The former reality TV star now charged with 2 counts of downloading and possessing child pornography. Today, the prosecution and defense are expected to make opening statements. It took close to 9 hours to pick 12 jurors and 4 alternates yesterday. Cameras and phones are not allowed in the courtroom, so we won't know what happened until today when things are wrapped up. But we know that potential witnesses included 2 of Duggar's siblings, Jedediah Duggar and Jill Duggar Dillard. Stay with THV11 and THV11.com for the very latest as the trial progresses. Police in Hot Springs are now turning to the community for help solving a homicide from almost a year ago. 21-year-old Shaquila Watts and her 5-year-old son Xavier were found dead in an apartment on Wynn Street on the afternoon of December 29th back in 2020. Investigators later ruled their deaths as homicides, but no arrests have been made in the year since then. Now police and the Watts family are asking anyone with information that could be helpful to come forward.
Just justice. Just won't. That'll bring joy to us.
They didn't deserve it, so I'm begging everybody or whoever know anything, just please come forward.
If you know something that could bring this family justice, you're urged to call police. Former President and Arkansas native Bill Clinton returning to the natural state this evening. He'll be in Little Rock for a volunteer appreciation gala at the Clinton Presidential Center to say thank you to those who have donated their time and talents to the organization. That event begins at 5:30. We'll have more from his visit tonight on THV11 News at 10.